Hello, hello. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Valentine's Day, one of two holidays being celebrated in Philadelphia today. The other, of course, being the Eagles parade. I passed a train station very early this morning, total darkness, jammed, jammed. And as I mentioned to TC, a lot of women. I was surprised just looking at sort of the demo on the track of who was waiting to go to the Eagles Super Bowl parade, and it was very diverse. That's what's really cool about it. It's a point that I made to Wolf Blitzer on the Monday after the Super Bowl victory. The point was that we just don't have, you've heard this from me before, relative to the Mingle Project, we just don't have common experience. And the Super Bowl is a unifier. 127 million people watched. I mean, that's a third of the country coming together to do the same thing. We don't have any other moments like that. And then when you think about the wearing of all the green in Philadelphia for the last few weeks, and you see it on everybody, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, young, old, male, female, it doesn't matter. Everybody's been into it. And that's been really cool to see. So be safe and enjoy. My friends at Parks Casino, my casino of choice. Okay. I have some news relative to Parks Casino. I regret to inform you that Norm Macdonald will not be performing at Parks Casino. As I may have referenced earlier in the week, Mark Norman, however, the comedian, will be there on July the 12th. So go see Mark Norman. I think I got caught up in all the SNL stuff because there's so many TV specials. And of course, tomorrow is a big special for SNL. We talked about that earlier in the week. Concerts, comedy, MMA, boxing, all at the state-of-the-art Excite Center. And then thousands of slots and table games, a state-of-the-art sports book, a beautiful poker room, a collection of award-winning restaurants. Parks Casino, this is how you win. There's a reason why it's Pennsylvania's #1 casino, and they've got all those headliners. Scotty McCreery from American Idol, magician Michael Carbonaro, country superstar Lee Brice, Larry the Cable Guy, the comedian, Trevor Wallace, another comedian, Mark Normand, the comedian. Don't forget, dinner and drinks before the show. Parks Casino. Buy your tickets for all the shows at parkscasino.com. This is how you win. You got to be 21. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So, little deviation today on this Friday for the poll question, insofar as it is not directly Trump driven. It is a non-Donald Trump, President Trump poll question for the first time in a while, although the government does have skin in the game and Trump is trying to play a role relative to the subject matter that I'm about to describe. What am I blathering on about? Okay. There's a story that we have today in the Friday edition of the newsletter about Amazon, because Amazon is one of the largest, maybe the largest, but one of the largest employers that is trying to get everybody back into the workplace, return to the office, RTO. There's even an acronym now for it. So the story in the newsletter today is from the Wall Street Journal, and it's about all the difficulties that Amazon is having in implementing this program. Amazon told hundreds of thousands of workers to be back at their desks full-time or look for another job. One hitch: in many offices, there weren't enough desks to go around. The space crunch has led the e-commerce giant to postpone the mandate at dozens of offices around the U.S., including Houston, Atlanta, and New York City. Workers assigned to some locations are still waiting to hear when they can actually go to the office full-time. Others who are back to the office 5 days, they don't have any teammates in the same location. They find themselves jockeying for parking, a place to sit, a private room to make video calls. So there's tumult. It hasn't been smooth, and it's a deep dive from the Wall Street Journal as to what is going wrong as Amazon tries to get everybody back into the workplace. Meanwhile, over at JP Morgan Chase, many are resisting the 5-day return to the office policy that has already been implemented there. And at JP Morgan Chase, it's funny, there's actually talk among some employees of unionizing, which would be like the antithesis, I think, of what Jamie Dimon stands for. We'll talk about that in a moment. But there's a petition that's been circulated. It has roughly 1,000 signatures to it. Keep in mind that JP Morgan Chase worldwide has, in round numbers, 300,000 or so employees. But 1,000 employees at JP Morgan Chase have said they don't like the return to the office policy. Here's a little bit of the flavor of this petition. We, the workers of JP Morgan Chase, are concerned about the future of our workplace, its integrity, employee satisfaction, and the increased toxicity that has metastasized in our company culture in the last couple of months. Pretty strong words, right? And then here's the crux of the argument. 6 years ago, full-time in office was the norm. Then COVID-19 lockdowns forced rapid change. It was uncomfortable, but we learned and adapted. So must leadership. Controlled A/B testing confirms that hybrid workers maintain the same high productivity levels as their full-time in-office counterparts, debunking the notion that remote work equates to lower performance. In addition to sustaining strong output, hybrid work reduces costs, enhances morale, and strengthens employee retention. JP Morgan Chase itself has effectively onboarded and trained a full cohort of new employees under the hybrid model for the past 5 years without issue. The recent mandate for 100% in-office work is a great leap backward. It hurts employees, customers, shareholders, and the firm's reputation. From a corporate citizenship perspective, it worsens traffic and pollution while disproportionately pushing out women, caregivers, senior employees, and individuals with disabilities. Many of these are top performers, and many of them only are able to join the workforce under hybrid work rules. This directly contradicts JP Morgan Chase's commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion. All right. Jamie Dimon, who is the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, wants to hear none of it. And they had a town hall for the company on Wednesday that just came to light in terms of what was said yesterday via Barron's. Barron's has, I've not heard any of the audio itself. But Barron's has, and we've got this, of course, linked in the newsletter today and posted at Smerconish.com, a pretty good transcript of exactly what went on. I want to read from it because it leads to today's poll question, and I want to know whether you agree with the sentiments of Jamie Dimon. You know, one of the most influential business people, I was going to say in the country, but it truly in the world, arguably America's most important banker. So according to the transcript from Barron's, an employee asked Dimon whether Dimon, D-I-M-O-N, by the way, no D on the end, whether he would be open to giving managers discretion over their team's in-office work. The employee said that because he works on a team across several countries and time zones, 5 days in the office doesn't make sense for him. And Jamie Dimon then says, I'm going to give you a complete answer. I have no idea if he was working from notes or if this was all just extemporaneous, but he then just totally unloads. I'm not going to read it all to you, but I'm going to read a little bit, parts that I've highlighted. He begins by saying, I'm going to give you the complete answer. I'm trying to think if I should clean up the language of this. In some cases I will, and in some cases I won't. He says, there's no chance that I will leave it up to the managers. Zero chance. The abuse that took place is extraordinary. You may be a great manager, but I'm going to give you examples of how bad it got, okay? Before I do that, 60% of Americans went to work every day during COVID. And somehow people who work in places, your manufacturing, who delivered your food, who got the food, police, firemen, our branches, a lot of you had to come into work and stuff like that. So the notion that everybody was working from home and it's great was not true. We've always had a work from home policy. I'm not against working from home, okay? I'm reading this literally if it's a little bit jumbled. First of all, let me stop there. He makes a great point. I think that there's a perception among us that well, you know, when the pandemic hit, then everybody and Jamie Dimon says, and I have no reason to doubt his 60% statistic, 60% of Americans went to work every day. You know, the cops and the firemen and the manufacturers and the people in the they didn't have a choice. Further along, he says, and so we allowed 3 days and 2 days, but here are the problems, and they are substantial. The young generation, this is the poll question. This is the basis of the poll question. The young generation is being damaged by this. They may or may not be in your particular staff, but they are being left behind. They are being left behind socially, ideas, meeting people. In fact, my guess is most of you live in communities a hell of a lot diverse than this room. I call timeout on this. What's he saying? I think what he's saying is we have built a diverse workplace, a place where people get to mingle. He didn't use the M word, but he could have, with people who are dissimilar than they. And he says, I'll bet you live in communities a hell of a lot less diverse. You know, you're living among your own. So true, according to all the data. And so he's embracing the workplace as an opportunity to exchange ideas with a very diverse set of coworkers. And I totally agree. You know my vote on the poll question. I totally agree with him that the young generation is being damaged by this. More of Jamie Dimon. And so it had all these kind of effects. We actually see these other kids slowly being left behind. And I won't do that to younger kids. Now, it's hard to say you come in, but not your bosses. And the other thing is, which is full of shit, which I couldn't stand listening to anymore, is, well, if I come in, I just zoomed to people somewhere. So I also said what you can't do, which is have people zooming in from different floors. If you're in the building, go to the meeting. Whoa, how's this going to play with Gen Zers? And then there's another part of this that it resonated with me, and I'll bet it'll resonate with you. He said, we've also had, and you know I'm right about this one, a lot of you were on the effing Zoom, and you were doing the following. Looking at your mail, sending texts to each other about what an asshole the other person is, not paying attention, not reading your stuff. And if you don't think that slows down efficiency, creativity, creates rudeness, it does. When I found out that people were doing that, you don't do that in my goddamn meetings, he said. If you're going to meet with me, you've got my attention. You've got my focus. I don't bring my GD phone. I'm not sending texts to people. It simply doesn't work. It doesn't work for creativity. It slows down decision-making. And don't give me this shit, the work from home Friday works. I call a lot of people on, I would love to have watched this. Oh my God, I would have loved to have seen this. I call a lot of people on Fridays, and there's not a GD person that you can get a hold of. And then he continues on, and he talks about how he's got understanding for caregivers, usually women, and we will be flexible with them. And then he says, like, there's the door. Listen to this. You don't have to work at JP Morgan. So the people of you who don't want to work at the company, that's fine with me. I'm not mad at you. Don't be mad at me. It's a free country. You can walk with your feet. But this company is going to set our own standards and do it our own way. I've had it with this kind of stuff. I've been working 7 days a GD week since COVID, and I come in, and where is everybody else? They're here, the Zooms and the Zooms who don't show up. That's not how you run a great company. We didn't build this great company by doing that, by doing the same shit that everybody else does. So you wait and see what happens over time to the companies that are in this business. And then further along, he says, I want the company, JP Morgan Chase, to be as successful in 10 years as it is today. What happened, he asks, to GE and to Sears and to Kmart? What happened to Nokia, BlackBerry? And then you had Apple and Amazon. It's even worse in financial services. What happened to Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, Travelers, Citibank? 100% of mortgage brokerages all bankrupt. Everybody fired, jobs lost, reputations lost, and it was complacency and bureaucracy. In every single case, the people weren't stupid, but the places got slower and more accepting of not doing their homework. And then he concludes this part of the discussion by saying, so anyway, the bureaucracy stuff, if you have a brilliant idea, send it to me. Interesting, the transcript from Barron's doesn't have the quote from this that is being picked up in all the media outlets. And if there weren't so much Trump dominant news, then the Trump angle here, if there is one, obviously, is that Trump is saying everybody's got to come back to the workplace. But the money quote is not in the Barron transcript, but it's been picked up everywhere else. And it is this: when asked about the in-person work policy during the staff meeting, he said about the petition, about that petition that I began by describing for you. Jamie Dimon said, "Don't waste time on the petition. I don't care how many people sign that fucking petition." And that drew laughter in the room. So, you hear all that, and there's so much there. There are 50 poll questions in that diatribe. The one that I went with is, do you agree with Jamie Dimon that the young generation is being damaged by remote work? I mean, I can tell you, having just had this conversation with our daughter, with a young child and maybe others in the future, who knows? We have this conversation. And I talk about the lack of mentorship and the lunch partner and so on. And she makes a great argument saying, hey, I've got the freedom that I otherwise wouldn't have had to be close to our son, to raise a family, to do all these things, but to do them in a more efficient fashion. I get it. That's why I thought it was a great poll question. Do you agree with Jamie Dimon that the young generation is being damaged by remote work? I've made it a binary choice. It's a yes or no. Go to Smerconish.com and cast a ballot on that. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens at Amazon, what happens at JP Morgan Chase, and what happens with the federal government. And I think each is, looking at the other, because in certain sectors, they're all competing for the same workforce. And if the people at JP Morgan Chase, which is notorious for being so hardworking, such a sweatshop when you're very early on as an investment banker, but if the hours there are too burdensome in the eyes of those young hotshots, and they have a place to go, then there'll be an exodus of talent, or maybe not, because maybe those other places are going to get, I'll use the word Dimon didn't, they're going to get soft and go the way of Lehman Brothers, but not JP Morgan Chase. I love it. Go vote. Do you agree with Jamie Dimon that the young generation is being damaged by remote work? And I know there are some paywall issues, but if you can access the full transcript, because I've just scratched the surface, you'd want to check out the whole thing. All right. Vote on the poll question at Smerconish.com. And make sure, please, that you're liking and subscribing on YouTube, and also setting yourself up for notifications. Okay. Thank you, gang. Go vote.